With a potential AEW release coming and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for July 13th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Speaking to ESPN's Mark Raimondi, former WWE champion Big E touched on the aftermath of his neck injury suffered on an episode of SmackDown, saying, "I have no issue whatsoever with Ridge Holland. He's reached out and said some very kind things. What we do is dangerous, and there are inherent dangers. And to that degree, we all kind of know what we sign up for. And it was unfortunate that it went down that way, but I'm not dead. I'm alive. I'm doing well." Big E would also say this about the doctors who've taken care of him, saying this about learning the severity of his injury. "It's very sobering to hear that. I think to be great at something like pro wrestling, or at least to be competent, you can't spend all your time worrying about possibly fatal injuries or breaking your neck. You have to go out there and be free and in the moment. I think a lot of us as performers don't spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff. I never thought I would be." During an interview with Culture State, FTR's Dax Harwood spoke about what is missing in modern pro wrestling. "The match we had with the Briscoes, go back and watch it. There weren't really any big moves. All it was selling. The big suplex to the floor, which did hurt like hell, we sold, all of us sold for like 2 minutes. The thing that makes them remember is their feeling, how they felt. Again, the match with the Briscoes. They're not going to remember the suplex to the floor. They're going to remember the feeling they got from that. That's all there is to it. That's what's missing in wrestling, is the emotion. My wife will watch when I'm on. She has no idea what a 450 feels like, or a shooting star press, or even a snapmare, She doesn't know what those feel like, but she knows what sadness feels like, and frustration and happiness. So when you can make people feel that, then you've got them. And that's when it becomes a classic. At Death Before Dishonor on July 23rd, FTR will defend their ROH tag title against the Briscoes. On his podcast, former WWE producer Road Dogg mentioned Seth Rollins and how the star would not follow through on advice given to him. His bad habit was not saying, "Okay, thank you, sir," or whatever, and being respectful, and then not doing what I said like every other young wrestler. At least pretend to respect what I'm telling you, you know what I mean? And what I was telling him was right. He did change it, and he did come up with something that was more of a bigger pop than the setup to it. They had a come to Jesus speech with him down there, and he changed his whole philosophy and perspective on how he was looking at stuff. And look at him now, man, on top of the world, doing some of his best work too, I might add. Last month, AEW star Santana put out a tweet which said 126 days and soon, seemingly a countdown until his contract expires. With fans believing this could lead to his departure, it was said that Santana is out with an injury to his knee. Talking about this situation on Keeping It 100, former LAX stablemate Konnan addressed the rumors, confirming Santana and Ortiz are not on good terms. Nothing more has been said about it at this time, with it looking like this could be the last we see of Santana in AEW. Reviewing AEW Dynamite from last week, Jim Cornette touched on the bout between Jon Moxley and Brody King as he said, "I will give this a chance just to see if Moxley does something different this time." So I paid attention. Under 1 minute and 15 seconds, they went to the floor. I just said, F it. Moxley's the worst wrestler in the world, and I tried to fast forward to the finish, but AEW can't manage the time. So they almost run over. For AEW Fyter Fest, Moxley will defend his interim AEW World title against Takeshita. Former AEW champion Kenny Omega had taken a shot at Jim Cornette on Twitch previously, saying when he realized he could make money by delivering hateful speech, he backed himself into a corner, and now if he wants to make rent, if he wants to buy his fancy McDonald's double cheeseburger meal, he has to talk about things that are going to get attention, and a lot of the time that's going to be yours truly. This caused Cornette to respond, saying, "You ruined a pastime, a hobby, an interest and entertainment that a lot of us had, and some of us had professionally, for years and years and decades, because it's just so silly and phony and stupid and illogical, and you've made wrestling something to be laughed at, and you admit that it should be fun. We should all laugh and have fun at the silliness. Well, guess who's laughing now, Twinkle Toes? Because I've got 75 to 80% of the wrestling fans that loved wrestling and don't watch it anymore, because people like you on my side. And you've got the remaining people that will eat that Elmer's glue and thank you for the ice cream. The kind of people who will like that kind of thing. So I think the roles are reversed here, because when you talk about me, I trend. You don't trend. So Kenny, you've been on TV in this country for 3 years. So if we want to compare relevance and star power and mainstream recognition, I've been on TV in this country most of the time for the past 40 years. You've been on TV in this country for 3. I've spent more time in a wrestling locker room than you've been alive. I think if we actually did the math, we can probably verify that I've been in more locker rooms than at least time that he spent either awake or asleep. So I hate to break it to you, Harpo, but I ain't trying to be a star off you. You're trying to do some damage control with me and discredit me, because I just have the platform to bring up what everybody can already see about you. You're an insufferable twat. A douchebag and a shitty wrestler is what you are. So embrace it. Embrace it. And because that's what your friends are too, they should embrace that as well. The problem is, they act like insufferable douchebags on television as heels, but they act like phony insufferable douchebags on TV. If they just act naturally and be the real insufferable douchebags, they might get some heat. With him recently returning to competition for his reality of wrestling promotion, WWE Hall of Famer Booker T gave fans an update on his podcast. I wouldn't call it an in-ring return. I would think I never really left the ring, really. I haven't officially said or retired or anything like that. Anytime someone sees me inside the ring, I'm just back. You know what I mean? You've heard me say it many times, man. I have no itch to scratch or anything like that. Stepping back to the ring is not something I'm looking to do. I always said if WWE was to ask me to come back, I'll do it, but it'll only be for the check. But to do it for Reality of Wrestling, a company that I built with my own 2 hands, it meant a lot. And it's special to see the guys around the wrestling community respond to, there again, not a WWE show, but a Reality of Wrestling show. It just makes the world to see Reality of Wrestling in a different light. On the True Geordie podcast, Chris Jericho talked about carrying AEW through the company's first few months, revealing, when we started AEW, it was solely on my back. I really believe that, because if you look at the roster, unless you were a hardcore wrestling fan, no one knew any of those guys. I have 3 to 6 months to make as many stars as I can, because if not, I can't. As great as I am and as great as I think I am, if I'm the only guy on the show for 6 months and the only star, it's gonna die. Think about Cody when AEW started. He was not the Cody that he is now. Nobody knew who Kenny Omega was, Darby Allin, Scorpio Sky, Moxley. He was not the guy that he is now when he came into our company. Who's Sammy Guevara? I didn't know how Santana Ortiz was. Jake Hager was not the guy he is now. He was a useless character in WWE. So we built these stars in 3 months, and that's when we got a television deal for $160 million for 4 years. Jericho would also mention Vince McMahon talking about getting away from WWE. I loved working for Vince McMahon. I loved that Vince would challenge me and push me. And I also laugh when people say, oh, Vince has lost it, and oh, look at Vince. He's a terrible booker and all this other stuff. Maybe it's not great sometimes, but you're also dealing with a guy who's been doing this for 40 years. Imagine doing this for 40 years. I remember when I left in 2005, I said I need to go away, and he said to me, I wish I could get away sometimes, but I can't. Kind of wistfully for like 3 seconds, then he was back to Vince McMahon. During an interview with NBC Sports Boston, former WWE star Alberto Del Rio spoke about rebuilding his legacy in pro wrestling, saying, I would be interested in going to AEW or any major company. As we were saying a few minutes back, I deserve to be in a major company. Once it has been proven that I was always telling the truth about those things I know I know I deserve to be out there to continue entertaining and to rebuild my legacy in the business that I love. I would love to be working for any major company. AEW, I haven't talked to anyone in that company. I've talked to people from other companies, but not from AEW. I have really good friends over there like Phil, CM Punk, and he is one of my friends in the business, and Chris Jericho, he was always nice to me, and we always had a good relationship while we were working for WWE. I know all the others, and we always got along with Daniel Bryan, Jack Swagger, and many others from the indie circuit. With AEW star Keith Lee tweeting yesterday that he had some bad news, it seemed like he would not be able to compete tonight for Dynamite. Now, AEW President Tony Khan has confirmed on Busted Open Radio. I don't want to get into Keith's personal business. Keith is here. He is wrestling tonight. He had a family situation. It's not my place to talk about it. Keith is here and here to wrestle, as I understand it. I can't really comment on what is happening, but we're going to support him through what is happening. While he is set to face Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, Roman Reigns is not being advertised for the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. Roman does have appearances set for Raw and SmackDown in the lead up to SummerSlam, as it remains to be seen what the plans are for him following the pay-per-view. Speaking about his time in WWE with Sports Illustrated, AEW star Cesaro made it clear that he is grateful for the opportunity. All the memories, they matter. I'm grateful for everything I've accomplished, and I'm grateful for all those opportunities. And they make me work so much harder to get where I want to be. Once I left, I knew what I wanted and where I wanted to go. I just didn't know if it would happen. That was also time for me to take a break mentally, recharge, and come back better. My goal was always to be better than I was yesterday, to be better tomorrow than I am today. I want to be even better now than people remember. Following her walkout with Naomi on Raw, it's been said that Sasha Banks has been removed from the internal WWE roster. Now she's set for her first public appearance since walking out, as C2E2 wrote. Please join us in welcoming our next C2E2 guest, Mercedes Varnado, Sasha Banks. Whether you've seen her in the ring or as Cosco Reeves in The Mandalorian, you're not going to want to miss out on this photo and autograph opportunity. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.